Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 17th January. The news items that have been picked up from the Hindu are these 12. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, GST stalemate resolved. Rollout deferred to July 1. So this is regarding the goods and services tax, which was scheduled to be put into force from April 1, 2017. So that was the target set, but now it will be implemented from 1st July, means 3 months later. So there is no harm if the tax is imposed after the financial year has commenced, because it is a transactional tax. Means the Union Finance Minister himself has said this, that it is a tax which is replacement to value addition tax. So it's value addition on which tax is collected. So as and when the date from which it is put into effect, the taxation can be process can be started off and collection can be done. So there is no harm if it's not from the start of the financial year. Plus the issues which were not yet resolved. So we have been seeing GST Council is the body which has been set up. It is chaired by Union Finance Minister and it has all states finance ministers or any minister represented in it. So all states have a representation too and center has representation, and through consensus they have been agreeing to all the terms, though voting is provided for coming to a conclusion, but till now the decisions have been taken through consensus. Consensus means all members agree. So that is how they have been gone ahead as such. And the two issues, rather three major issues which were remaining, on which the conclusion had not come forth, no consensus has come forth in the present GST Council meeting, that has been achieved. So these issues were on dual control, cross empowerment, and the territorial waters, taxation in those regions. So what have been the decisions here, consensus which has come on these three aspects? We'll just look. So on cross empowerment and dual control. So dual control is with respect to control over taxation as such. In both have a say, center and state both have a say. So here it has been decided to have a horizontal split as was demanded by the states. The center wanted a vertical split. Vertical split in taxation powers means in some areas center has complete control, in some sectors, areas, states have complete control. But the states wanted a horizontal split, so that has come up. And what has been decided is taxpayers with less than 1.5 crore annual turnover. In such cases, states will have the power to administer and assess the GST tax in 90% of the cases. So it is 90-10 ratio. Remaining 10% would be under center's power, where the annual turnover is less than 1.5. If the annual turnover is more than 1.5 crore, then in such cases, states and center will control and administer GST on them in 50-50 ratio. So this is the horizontal split which has been decided. Means no sector-wise or means product-wise or commodity-wise or service-wise segregation has been done, but the horizontal split is what has come forth. Then next was on the dual control. So in dual control cases, the problem, this was dual control, and in case of cross empowerment. So cross empowerment is with respect to interstate GST. So in such cases also cross empowerment provisions will be made for the states. So this lies with the central government. Power to impose taxes, interstate GST lies with the central government, but this cross empowerment would be provided for the states in the same ratio as this, as less than 1.5 crore and more than. So same ratio here as the situation is for these tax assessment, same would be applying for interstate GST also with cross empowerment. Then next was regarding territorial waters. So territorial waters are 12 nautical miles beyond the coastline. So in such regions, actually the power lies with the power to levy tax lies with the center, but the concession has been made to the states and this power has been given to the states. So this is how the GST Council meet finalized on these aspects, and now the Parliament will pass the Constitutional Amendment Act, which it has already passed for GST Council, the other GST acts which has to be passed. So GST to implement it, first a constitutional amendment was required. So constitutional amendment has already been done. Under it only the GST Council being set up and decisions being taken. Now what decisions come forth, they have to be passed by the Parliament as a separate GST Act. Integrated GST Act, Central GST Act, State GST. So all these bills will have been finalized now because of the conclusions, consensus coming forth, and these also have to be passed by the Parliament in Feb. And after that only it would be put into effect. The next news item is Supreme Court mulls regulatory mechanism for apps. So So Supreme Court has directed the center and the TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, to see whether internet messaging applications like WhatsApp can be brought under any law, any statutory regulatory framework. So presently they are not regulated. Actually, it was a case filed by two Delhi students, and they were demanding that WhatsApp had decided, it had changed its policy, and it had decided that it would share the data of the users with Facebook. So this was the point on which the students had challenged this policy of WhatsApp in Delhi High Court. But Delhi High Court said that this is a free service. The privacy law policy has changed. So if you don't want to go ahead with it, you can just opt out of the service. So it's a free service provided. You don't want it, opt out. So that was the stand taken by Delhi High Court, and it had ordered WhatsApp to that all those users, because of its change in policy, all those users who are disabling and deleting the accounts, no data of those users should be there with WhatsApp, nor should they be shared with Facebook. They should be deleted on WhatsApp side also. So this was the order of the Delhi High Court. The students have challenged this Delhi High Court order in Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has also asked that what is the harm in this. But the petitioners, the argument put forth here is that right to privacy is a fundamental right. So as such, so this is being breached. So there needs to be a regulation on this aspect, that how can, because as right to freedom of speech and expression is a right protected, so this is also speech and expression which we use here. So because WhatsApp is used for communication, so the privacy should be maintained in that aspect as well. So but then the Supreme Court had also argued that this is a free service. So the point put forth is that telephone calls today are also free, but then for telephone calls there is regulation. So it is a free service, but there is TRAI which is regulating it. So why there is no regulation on these communication means platforms, social media platforms? So that's what is the point, and the Supreme Court has asked the center and TRAI to look into the matter. It will hear the whole case in detail in May. So that has also been scheduled. Then this is regarding TRAI. So it is a statutory body. It was established in 1997 under the TRAI Act. So it is to nurture the growth of telecommunication in India. So to look into level playing field is provided, fair and transparent environment for the functioning of telecom operators in India is provided. So all those aspects, fair competition is looked into by TRAI. It's a regulatory body. So it regularly comes in news. We have heard of TRAI quite often with respect to even the zero rating services of Facebook, with respect to direct to home services. You must have heard also about USOF, Universal Service Obligation Fund. So that is also maintained by TRAI to provide services, telecom services in remote areas, unconnected areas. So these social obligation aspect is also part of it. And also with respect to call drops, you hear of the quality of service should be ensured. All that is also looked into by TRAI. The next news item is Akhilesh to ride the cycle. So this, since we have been following this about Election Commission will give its ruling on who would get the political party symbol of Samajwadi Party after the split. So that decision has come. The Samajwadi Party symbol cycle has been allotted to the Akhilesh Yadav faction, the present Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. So it says that based on the test of numerical majority as upheld by the Supreme Court in Sadiq Ali case. So the numerical majority in the organizational structure and in the legislature too. The support which has been put forth for Akhilesh Yadav has been majority. So based on that, the symbol allocation has been done by Election Commission. The next news item is Supreme Court appointed panel to tackle air pollution. The Environment Ministry has amended laws to ensure that a Supreme Court appointed task force, a panel, would implement the graded action plan on pollution control for Delhi and the NCR region. So pollution levels we see here rise drastically. So under the Environment Protection Act of 1986, the task force will implement the graded action plan. So graded action plan means grades would be there, that what is the status of air, air levels and then pollution in the air, and based on which level is breached, the actions would be put into effect. So this is if particulate matter 2.5 breaches 300 micrograms per cubic meter, then there would be odd even car rationing scheme put into effect, ban on construction activities put into effect. If particulate matter 10 levels go beyond 500 micrograms per cubic meter for 2 consecutive days, then again these provisions would be put into effect. So such provisions have been put forth in this graded action plan. So this is the graded action plan for Delhi put forth by the Environment Ministry. And a task force appointed by the Supreme Court would look into its implementation. So other provisions are like closing brick kilns, that is construction only, hot mix plants, stone crushers, intensifying public transport services. So these are also part of the list, that public transport being increased, so private vehicles on the roads would reduce. Increasing the frequency of mechanized cleansing and sprinkling of water on roads. So all these provisions can be put into effect there. So this is there. Also another thing is, if the very poor air quality persists, if it's struck, then diesel generators will be banned. Parking fee will be increased by 3 to 4 times. So this is the graded action plan which is proposed. So this is under the Environment Protection Act only. So it has provisions. So it is the act which provides for protection and improvement of environment. So prevention of hazards to human beings, controlling the environment pollution, restrictions on areas for location of industry. So power is there to the central government through this Environment Protection Act, that it can put restrictions, safeguards for handling hazardous substances. So it looks into all those aspects. The next news item is Supreme Court revives hearing on Andhra bifurcation. These are a group of petitions, a bunch of petitions which have been filed from politicians from various political parties, Congress, BJP, Telugu Desam Party. So they all had been filed in 2014 when Andhra Pradesh was bifurcated and Telangana was formed as a separate state. So all these Telugu politicians have petitioned before the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has presently taken this for hearing, and the Supreme Court is being questioned by these petitioners about on what basis was the new state Telangana formed. So states' points of view are not taken into consideration. So they argue that this goes against federalism, that the states, though state means Andhra Pradesh state, refused for this bifurcation in its legislative assembly to it rejected the bill, still the central government went ahead and formed a new state Telangana. So they say that Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act of 2014, which divides the powers and functions powers between Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, how the two states would function post bifurcation. The provisions are there in it. So this is also called unconstitutional by these petitioners, and they want the Supreme Court to declare it so. Also the provision that there will be a common capital for Telangana and Andhra Pradesh for the first 10 years, a decade, that is also challenged, that how can this be possible. So Andhra Pradesh's capital was Hyderabad, but now Hyderabad has gone to Telangana. So Andhra Pradesh, you must be knowing that it is forming its new capital, Amravati. So now the Hyderabad, which is with Telangana, continues to be the joint capital as such. So that is being questioned by these petitioners. But the Supreme Court is saying that on what basis a new state was formed, the best index for it is the public demand. So if there's public demand, based on that, if a new state is formed, there is how can it be questioned? But then how is this public demand ascertained is the major question. So this is the whole issue all about. So Telangana demand is long back. It dates since independence. So since that time, there was a demand for a separate state Telangana. But then the 1956 State Reorganization Act, it did not take this into consideration. At that time, Andhra Pradesh was formed as a separate state. So this demand for Telangana was not accepted. So the protests and demands continued, and finally in 2014, Telangana was formed as a separate state, the 29th state of India. The next news item is CSIR set to launch rupees 400 crore startup fund. So CSIR is Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. So it promotes scientific innovations amongst Indian scientists, and many Indian scientists have developed many innovations as such. But then if they are put into effect or not, means if they become practically applicable or not, that is the question. So to make these innovations turn productive, what is required is investment in these innovations. So for that, to support that, startup fund would be created by CSIR. This will have a 400 crore funding. So this would be provided to CSIR scientists so that they can establish their own startups or promote their innovations. So this is in news. So this has been cleared in principle by the Prime Minister too. So CSIR is a pre-independence organization. It was established in 1942. So it's a research and development organization in India. It looks into scientific research. It is funded by Ministry of Science and Technology. It is registered as a society under Societies Registration Act. So it looks into various fields of science. The next news item is Parrikar wants private players to tap DRDO's knowledge base. So this is with respect to Defense Research and Development Organization. Again, DRDO has established many self-reliant missiles and other components for defense, and all these can become entities which can be sold off by India to other countries. So to make this possible, what is required is private players coming into picture and they expanding on the means they are putting those plans or those proposals or those products into production. So large scale production. So with the help of private players, this is possible. So that's what the Defense Minister Manohar Parrikar is looking forward to. That there is a lot of knowledge and infrastructure based with DRDO, but then if many medium, small scale firms, private industries come forward, then they can help DRDO in producing these components, and then they could be sold off as well. So this is what we are planning. We want to export our defense products. So some of them which have been appreciated by the Defense Minister are smart anti-airfield weapon, the long-range ballistic missile, Agni 5, Agni 4, guided Pinaka missile, Astra missile, all these have been appreciated. So DRDO, again a research and development organization, military research and development organization. It was founded in 1958. It is under the administrative control of Ministry of Defense. So it has various laboratories, around 52 laboratories which function under it, and it functions in various sectors for developing defense equipments like aeronautics, electronics, material science, missile, naval systems, etc. The next news item is findings on pest menace under a cloud. So this is regarding Indian Council of Agricultural Research and institution under it. So this is Central Island Agricultural Research Institute in Port Blair in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So here scientists in 2011 had claimed that Pollu beetle, which is a pest infesting black pepper, that has occurrence in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. But this claim has been refuted by another taxonomist. So taxonomist is one who looks into nomenclature of organisms. So he has claimed that Pollu beetle has not been found in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So that is the whole controversy. He claims that this occurrence which has been claimed is wrong. It's fabrication of scientific data. And the other side, Indian Council of Agricultural Research says that we have decided it, we have seen its occurrence, and we have put forth a paper. We are not taxonomists. We don't look into taxonomy and as such. So this is how we have put forth. When the taxonomist says that he wants to see the laboratories of this institution and where they have found Pollu beetle, they have denied access. So again, the doubts come forth, and he is making such a claim. Claim, counter claim is not important for us, but from environment, biodiversity perspective, if there is some term name coming into news, then we should just remember this. So at least you should know Pollu beetle, it is a pest infesting black pepper. Otherwise, this whole thing will not be asked. There is no question on that. ICAR, again, a council, agricultural research. So we are seeing scientific research, defense research. This is Agricultural Research Institute. So knowing about these research institutions from science and tech perspective is also important. So this is under Ministry of Agriculture. It is also a society registered under Societies Registration Act, just like the CSIR. And this is also a pre-independence organization. It was established in 1929. Right? So this is for coordinating on various aspects in agricultural research, including horticulture, fisheries, animal science, etc. Then the next news item is Supreme Court slams state stance on PILs. So this is regarding the public interest litigations which have been filed before the Supreme Court, on which the Supreme Court has directed the states to give their stand. So we heard this. That's again today also we saw in WhatsApp also 4 weeks time given to the center and try to respond. So same way Supreme Court demands even the states to respond. So in such cases it has been found that the states are very reluctant. They don't even respond to these queries and such orders put forth by the Supreme Court, which has been admonished by the Supreme Court now. It is saying that is this a joke that PILs are filed and we are looking into the case and asking the states to respond and states have no answers. So here based on this it has said that all the secretaries, so secretaries in the ministry in the states who are responsible to whom queries have been filed, they have to come personally for the hearing now. So this has been put forth. So these some proposals which were there. One PIL was on the installation of speed governors, which can govern the speed in public transport vehicles, because road accidents are increasing. So there is a need for speed to be governed in public transport vehicles. So this on this also PIL, no response has come from the state. This was in Gujarat. Then another PIL is with respect on industrial pollution too, no response has come forth. Even on midday meal schemes implementation on schools, here two states have not responded. So now Supreme Court is coming down heavily on them. What is a PIL? You should know. PIL is public interest litigation. So with respect to any environmental, social grievances in public interest, anybody can file a petition before the Supreme Court or before the judiciary. So that is what a PIL is, public interest litigation. Otherwise, even only if you are an aggrieved party, you have a right to petition before the Supreme Court. So this was the judicial innovation, that Supreme Court can hear a number of cases because in public interest, they are filed before the Supreme Court. So this increases the domain or the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, of the judiciary as such, not just the Supreme Court. The next news item is demonetization has hit India's growth, IMF. So we have been seeing the predictions and the forecasts for India's growth being modified by various international organizations. Right now, this is the International Monetary Fund, IMF, which has even reduced its growth forecast for India for the financial year 2016-17. So earlier it had predicted 7.6% growth. It has brought it down by 1 percentage point to 6.6% due to demonetization. It says that the temporary negative consumption shock which has been found due to cash crunch, cash shortage and payment disruptions because of this demonetization, that is why the growth rate is bound to go down. So it has predicted 6.6% growth. Also for the next financial year, again it had predicted 7.6% growth, but now it has brought it down to 7.2% for India. Even the global growth forecast which it has is of around 3.1% for 2016. So for other countries also it has brought down its growth forecast. For US and China, the growth forecast has seen a marginal upward shift. For remaining, including Brazil and Mexico, it has been revised downwards. So this is the news. So here again, what is important for us is to also know about IMF. Because what is IMF's growth forecast, they will not ask you, but understanding about these growth forecasts, so directly the question is not going to come. They're not going to ask you World Bank what was the forecast, IMF what was the forecast, but at least knowing about these international organizations and their activities is important. So this is IMF. So the IMF and World Bank are called Bretton Woods twins. So why are they so called? We'll see that also, because they were formed together in 1944. So this was the time of World War II. World War II ended, and after that we needed some way in which the developing countries need to be brought on par to the on the path of development, and also for the countries which were suffering post the wars. So there was a need to bring in a fresh stimulus here, and that was done through these economic organizations. So IMF presently comprises of 189 countries. It is headquartered in Washington. It is a global monetary cooperation fund. So monetary cooperation takes place through IMF. So what is the difference between IMF and World Bank? We'll look at that also. So it helps in securing financial stability, facilitating international trade, and also for any balance of trade gap which is there, to fill that up, the IMF comes into the picture if demanded as such. So this is there. Its central role is management of balance of payments. So that is there. So its goal when it was formed under Bretton Woods Conference was to reconstruct international payment system. So we'll understand this, what is the difference and what are the rules. So this oversees international monetary system. Monetary is with respect to the money as such, how money is to be maintained globally within the economies and how the rates should be. And World Bank, it is to promote economic development of the world's poorer countries. So we have seen various arms. World Bank Group comprises of various banks. So IBRD is what is known as World Bank, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Just 2-3 days back, we saw about World Bank Group also. So other organizations like International Development Association. So this provides financial assistance to the poorest developing countries. And then there is International Finance Corporation too, which provides assistance to private sector. So loans are provided to private sector also under World Bank, various entities under it. So it assists all members, both industrial and developing countries, to find if they are facing a temporary balance of payment difficulty, then short to medium term loan credit can be provided by IMF. And this is for development. World Bank is for development. So this is the draws its financial resources primarily from the quota, which is provided, which is subscription of its member countries. So what is this quota under IMF too? We'll see below. And this acquires most of its financial resources by borrowing from the international market, bond market. So this is there. So this is Bretton Woods Conference of 1944, where the two main founders were Harry Dexter White and John Maynard Keynes. So this is from US and UK respectively, who were the founding members of this Bretton Woods Conference, post which the result was formation of World Bank and IMF. That's why the two are called Bretton Woods twins. So the two great objectives which were tried to be accomplished by Bretton Woods system was to free more than half the world's population from the colonial powers, and second was to unleash global economic reconstruction and development. So the reconstruction and development was required for both the war-shattered economies in Europe, Japan and other developed countries too, and development of colonial countries too, which were underdeveloped, which had recently gained independence too, or were in the process of gaining independence. So that was there. Then the special drawing rights which are there under IMF. So we read about the quota. So IMF works with quota. So there is quota allotted to each member country in IMF, and this quota is a share of the country contribution to IMF, and based on your quota you get the voting rights. So that's how it works. It has a correlation there, and these voting rights, apart from in return of the quota, you get special drawing rights also. So voting rights are also there and special drawing rights are also there. So this SDR, it's called SDR. It is also called paper gold. So this is an asset. It is part of even the financial reserves of the country. So it is considered as part of your foreign exchange reserves also. So why? Because this has value. It cannot be used as money, but it has value. Even there is a basket of currencies based on which SDR's value is determined. Even in this was recently news that Chinese currency, renminbi or yuan, was also added into the SDR basket. So that will also be used in determining the value of SDR, 1 unit of SDR. So this is there. So it is a foreign exchange reserve. It's forex reserve as such. So this is only paper. It's not, and nothing else is given in lieu of this. It's just a paper of IMF which has that value. So this IMF member countries can borrow money at favorable rates from the IMF's reserves in any of the currencies listed in the SDR basket. So you can, these are all hard currencies as such too. Chinese yuan is the recent addition. So this is one advantage which China has attained to. So US dollars, you can see it comprises of around 41%, 30% is for euro. Chinese yuan has got 10%, around 11%, then Japanese yen, and finally it is British pound sterling. So this is how the currency value is also there in the SDR basket. So this Chinese yuan has been added with effect from September 2016, that it has come into effect. So end of September means with effect from 1st October 2016. Then the next news item, the last one, is sanitization of cattle sheds key to prevent malaria. So malaria is one major health hazard in India. Sri Lanka, we saw, has become malaria free. India aspires to be so, but then an international study has shown that it is not possible as long as only human affected malaria is targeted, because even animals are affected by malaria. There are some these malaria is caused because of mosquitoes. So mosquito, it's a vector-borne disease. So this mosquito, Anopheles mosquito, which cause malaria, the two major species which are there, this Anopheles culissifacies and Anopheles fluviatilis. So these two mosquito specimen, which are the major vector of malaria in Indian subcontinent, some of them are also having zoophilic behaviors. Philic means love, zoo means animal related, zoology means animal related. So zoophilic behavior. Philic means love, phobic means afraid of, so attracting and repelling. So zoophilic behavior is animal attracting behavior. So that is, these mosquitoes are preferring animals for feeding, rather than, they feed on the blood of animals rather than humans. So many cattle sheds which are located all across India, and almost all of them are close to human settlements too. So if animals are affected because of malaria, then it transfers to humans as well, and this results in the techniques which are used to control malaria presently, like the nets which are used, and mosquito repellents as such used. So if these are not used for the cattle, for the animals, then malaria cannot be eradicated. So a little tweak in the policy which is used to control malaria can help to shift the balance in favor of malaria eradication from the country. Otherwise it would be very difficult. So that has been highlighted here. So insecticide treated bed nets and indoor insecticide sprays will be less effective for mosquitoes which exhibit zoophilic behavior. So here little tweak is required. Target the animals as well, they should also be protected, and malaria can be eradicated completely then. So that is it. These are the news items. Thank you.